Hop and Vetiver, Accidental Anarchists, Chapter 2, codenamed Actually Going Through with It. Audio City was one of the only new cities in the former U.S. It had been hailed as a new hope for a new era, but had foundered and stagnated in the 4 years since its completion. It had achieved little aside from breaking the pre-revolution record for violent riots and police shootings. Aside from this instability, Audio City was much like other typical cities in the new era, clinging to its tentative infrastructure with all its strength. The little family dodged crew members, cargo, and seagulls while disembarking. Vetiver was so small that people tended not to notice her, so she constantly had to duck out of the way. Things weren't any easier for Fred at the front of the family. The water jug had been a prudent choice to bring along, because many municipal water sources were either thick with bacteria and pollutants or were treated with drugs to subdue unruly citizens. But it was also unwieldy, and Fred kept conking people's heads with it. For several minutes, Vetiver followed the hollow clunk and subsequent apologies. Then the crowd thinned out, and she could see more of her surroundings. Soon the busy wharf gave way to a quiet, sloping sidewalk. Sharon called for a rest, and she and Vetiver sat down on the trunk. Fred remained standing. "Father, what sort of city is this?" Vetiver asked. "Where are all the people?" She had hardly seen anyone since leaving the wharves. Across the street, a uniformed man swiped gray paint over stenciled red graffiti. "Unity or diversity?" the letters shouted before drowning in primer. "Freedom or safety? Equality or individuality?" Swipe, swipe, the words vanished. Audio City, like everywhere else since the revolution, has struggled, especially during construction. No one had built a city in the new era before, and the founders ran into plenty of new problems, most notably the cyber phantoms that interfere with airwaves and can supply misinformation to both the police and the public. The city is working hard to become more stable. "Of course," he amended, waving his arm at the drying paint, "plenty of people disagree with the local government without providing any solutions, I should add. So to answer your second question, Vetiver, everyone is probably at work right now. The unions, city council, and citizens all work together to make the city prosper. Really, it's remarkable." "Still, dear," Sharon cautioned, "please don't drink the water." "Okay." Sharon stood up and lifted her end of the trunk. Vetiver followed suit, and the three of them continued up the sidewalk. Vetiver found the surroundings distasteful. The shops and apartments lining the street were constructed from different shades of scavenged boards, tin, and bricks. As they walked farther into the town, the buildings became more industrialized, consisting mostly of concrete and cinder blocks. Grime from nearby factories muted once bright signs, storefronts, and advertisements. "How far is the hotel?" Sharon asked, shivering. Although the sun was out, the air was humid and clammy. Sweat worked up by bearing luggage chilled the traveler's skin. "Only a few more blocks now, I think. I guess the buses only run on the end of shifts. I apologize, honey. I should have checked beforehand." "What was that?" Vetiver asked. "What?" Her parents couldn't hear it. "It's going to be them," Hop thought. "Whoever's after me. They didn't get me last time, so now they brought some kind of machine to hunt me down. And there are no people anywhere. I've got to switch soon." He could imagine it, a heavy tank blundered between buildings, ripping through asphalt with shiny steel tracks. It would have a flamethrower or a Legionary F-742 mounted on it. No, it would have both. They would chase him into a dead end and... "Now I hear it," Sharon said. "It must be some sort of machine." The sound increased in speed and intensity as they walked. Vetiver could feel it radiating from the ground, buzzing through her teeth, jiggling her eyeballs. By the time they reached the intersection that was the source of the noise, it felt like a blanket of sound waves wrapped around Vetiver's entire body. A throaty scream tore through the regular beat, and the single hum shattered into a plethora of different instruments. "Oh dear," Sharon murmured, but of course no one heard her. Bodies clogged the intersection. In the center of the crowd, someone had erected a plywood stage, complete with oversized speakers and multicolored light. Young people, some wearing school or factory uniforms, Others clad in threadbare rags or gaudy punk outfits were dancing, screaming along, sitting, and sprawled out in both lanes. "It certainly has feeling," Vetiver yelled to her parents. "What? I can't hear you, honey. Come on, we're going around." Fred bellowed over the music. He led his family along the sidewalk, heading in the direction with less people. "This might be a good place to run away," Pop suggested. Vetiver could hear him as well as she had in the silence of her ship cabin. "It would be hard to find you in this crowd." Few concert-goers noticed the overtly square family striding down the sidewalk beside them. The ones who did laughed and waved, beckoning for the travelers to join them. Fred and Sharon stared straight ahead. Vetiver couldn't understand most of the lyrics, but she thought she caught a dirty word. The crowd thinned farther from the nucleus, and Fred found a feasible place to cross the street when the song ended. "Thank you for showing up, Audio City," someone shouted into a mic. Vetiver was too short to see the stage from where she stood. The crowd shrieked, whistled, and catcalled. "Please enjoy our local buzzkill's new single, Audacity." Knowing the title helped understand the lyrics, Vetiver decided, as she sidestepped an out-of-control dancer. She had been right, the music was liberally sprinkled with swears. Fred adjusted their course to avoid a cluster of dancing teens. Vetiver couldn't see her feet while carrying the trunk. She tripped, dropping her end and denting the leather upholstery. A boy from the group caught her before she hit the ground and helped her up, but he didn't let go of her arm. He said something she couldn't hear and pulled her in the direction of the stage, away from her parents. Vetiver was so startled that she barely had time to register the teenager's red, dreadlocked hair, his ratty overcoat, and his grip on her sleeve, before her father dropped the water jug and shoved the boy, knocking him down. Then he snatched Vetiver up and carried her under one arm, and the water jug under the other. Vetiver saw the boy sit up and shout something, an apology, an explanation, as he sopped blood from his nose with a grungy sleeve. "Are you all right?" Fred released Vetiver on the curb. His face was red, and a bulging vein pulsed across his forehead. He looked angry enough to turn back and attack the boy again. "Vetiver!" Sharon fell to her knees and enveloped Vetiver in a suffocating hug. "Did you carry that all by yourself, Mother?" Vetiver asked, pointing at the trunk in amazement. She wiggled out of the hug. "I'm okay. I'm fine." "Your parents are sturdier than you realize," Fred remarked. Then his face clouded again. "I'm shocked at how children growing up in a city like this one could be so violent, so unconstructive." That would have been the perfect time to get away. By the sound of his voice, Vetiver knew Hop's eyes were white slits of annoyance. "No, not really," she countered in a whisper. "My parents would have been worried. Remember, I haven't hidden the note where they would find it, so they'd think I had been kidnapped." Hop didn't answer. Fred ran out of breath to rant, so after a final venomous glare back at the riffraff, he set off again. They walked in silence for several blocks. Then Sharon said, "That was scary for all of us, Vetiver, but it can be a learning experience too. Be careful to stay away from people like that in the future, especially boys." "I get along best with boys. Actually, this probably sounds strange, but I didn't get any bad vibes from him," Vetiver said. "What?" Sharon's face blanched. "You know, sometimes you're around someone and they give you a bad vibe. Sometimes it's a person who looks safe, even. And then once in a while you meet someone who has a good vibe, even if he looks scary or strange. I'm not sure if it's actually vibrations. Maybe it's really pheromones or micro-expressions or something." "Vetiver, honey?" "No, I won't hear you talking that way," Fred cut in. They crossed the street in a tense, almost unbearable silence. Embarrassed, angry sweat prickled Vetiver's back. "It's okay, I was joking." She hadn't been. They reached the hotel 30 minutes later. The sun had warmed, and reflected heat from the asphalt baked Sharon and Vetiver for the last few blocks. Fred was more resilient. He had a spring in his step as they entered the hotel. It was an expensive place, and the AC was turned all the way up. Sharon shivered. "We're the Westings," Fred announced to the man behind the front desk. "Adjoining rooms 212 and 213, correct? That'll be 247. Fred pulled out a wad of pre-revolution American bills. Better use these up before they're obsolete. He counted out $988 and handed the stack to the man, who counted it. He wore a pinstriped uniform. Hop thought Audio City was a city of many uniforms. The family walked down a carpeted corridor. It wasn't as bouncy as the carpet of the ship, but it was cleaner and decades newer. They smelled the swimming pool before they saw it. Vetiver peered through the window in the pool door to see another uniformed employee pouring blue fluid from a jug into the Bermuda water. Sharon peeked in, too. "If the bacteria doesn't kill you, the chemicals will," she commented. Fred unlocked the doors to both rooms with a metal key. Hotel cards were not reliable in a place as electronically dysfunctional as Audio City. "Sharon and I will go buy some food," he told Vetiver. "Considering recent events, it would probably be best for you to relax in your room." "Stay away from the pool," Sharon cautioned, then followed her husband. Vetiver nodded. She entered her room, tested the door to make sure it had latched, then dropped her luggage on the floor. The room was clean, but dull. It had a personal bathroom and a comfortable bed. A faded print of a farm landscape hung above the headboard. No television. "Okay, now we run away," Hop prodded. "We've wasted too much time." "I want my mother and father to tuck me in first." "You aren't actually going to go through with it." "Yes, I will. But remember how worked up they got at the concert? I want them to have one peaceful night's rest before they start worrying. Did you know stress makes bands on your heart? They're upset enough as it is. I think they made me stay here so they could talk about me." "You gave them plenty to talk about. They'll never let you out of sight if you keep saying crazy stuff like that." "I wanted to tell them something about what I think. I want them to understand me." Vetiver flopped down on the bed. "I should have known they'd be freaked out by my ideas." "What exactly did you mean, anyway? Did you think that kid was hot?" "No! Don't say hot. It makes you sound dumb." "Of course not. I hardly even saw his face. Besides," she continued, rolling her eyes, "I hardly have time for romance or something. The whole concept is a waste of time. If I decide I want a family in the future, I'll find a nice person around my age who shares some of my interests and beliefs. I'm not going to waste time falling in love, confessing my feelings, courting, dealing with drama and miscommunications, being jealous or anxious or stressed. Nope, I'll do it the rational way. I was trying to tell my parents that I didn't feel like I was in danger from that person." "If you say so. Sorry to break it to you, Vetiver, but I don't think it's as simple as you think." "It is. People just overly complicate it." "I won't argue with you. But really, we need to get going. Right now, we could blend in with the crowd. If we wait any longer, we'll be conspicuous on the cameras." "Cameras? When there isn't even a TV in my room? I doubt it. You forget that we're in Audio City." Someone knocked at the door. "Hello, is there a Miss Vetiver Westing at this residence?" Vetiver recognized Sharon's voice. She opened the door and both her parents entered, carrying sacks of food. The three of them sat down on Vetiver's bed and attacked a supper of sandwiches and pickled vegetables. "There's an excellent cafeteria right next to the lobby," Fred told Vetiver. "If you're hungry when you wake up, come get one of us and we'll have some breakfast together." "Yes, Father." Vetiver dropped her sandwich wrapper in the trash, then went to the bathroom and brushed her teeth and hair, and put on her pajamas while her parents finished eating. It seemed to Hop that Fred and Sharon were eating slower than people normally did. Did they suspect Vetiver? He'd hoped to ditch the parents quickly and get on with it. Why was Vetiver waiting? Maybe she wasn't going to leave them at all. Maybe he should just switch to one of them and clear out. At the rate they were going, his pursuers would catch up and Vetiver would die anyway. He could switch to Fred. The man's body looked strong enough to take Hop a long way west. Sharon finished eating and tucked the covers around Vetiver. "Good night, honey." Fred's mustache tickled Vetiver's forehead as he gave her a good-night kiss. "Night, Mother. Night, Father. You know, you can call us Mom and Dad if you want. Even Mama and Daddy." "Yes," Fred chuckled. "Mother and Father sounds pretty formal." "Okay." Sharon smoothed Vetiver's hair out of her eyes, made sure she had enough blankets and wasn't thirsty, and slowly walked to the door. "Make sure to come and get us if you have a bad dream," she said as she flicked out the light. I will. Fred closed the door. Vetiver sprang out of bed as soon as the latch clicked. She pulled off her pajamas, forgetting her need for privacy, and scrambled into her day clothes. You finally decided to go? Hop asked, startled. If I keep putting it off, I'll continue to lose courage, Vetiver said. She pulled on her shoes and wrapped her hair into messy braids. See if they're sleeping yet. Hop went through the wall to the next room. Sharon was setting the alarm clock, although a note taped to the top warned, "Alarm prone to malfunctioning due to cyber phantoms." Fred was brushing his teeth. You have a few minutes, Hop reported back to Vetiver. Vetiver straightened her covers, then laid her suitcase in the center of the bed with her farewell note folded on top, where it would be hard to miss. How about now? Hop checked again. Fred and Sharon were in bed, but the lamp was still on and they were speaking in low voices. Hop caught Vetiver's name twice, but was unable to decipher anything else. 5 more minutes, he told Vetiver. She undid her hair, brushed it, and then braided it neatly. It calms me, she explained. If my hair is going according to plan, everything else will too. When Hop looked in a few minutes later, the lamp was off and Fred was beginning to snore. All clear, he reported. Vetiver inventoried her supplies one more time to make sure she hadn't forgotten anything. Looked around the room, adjusted her notes so it was square with both the suitcase and the bed, and said, "It looks like everything's in order." "Come on," Hop urged, "before you have second thoughts." Vetiver nodded and turned the door handle. It opened with a soft click, and Vetiver stalked down the dim hallway. Her shoes made no sound on the expensive carpet. She passed the door to the swimming pool, but didn't pause to admire the unnatural blue water. The man at the front desk didn't look up when she passed him, opened the lobby door, and stepped out into the humid night air. The streets branching away from the hotel were well lit by